If you want to get the rewards, you have to pay the price. Sometimes results are proportional to effort. You want to put the extra effort in, you'll get the extra results. It's not a necessary component for most people to achieve a high degree of health. What's necessary is to have the persistence and diligence to apply these principles.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men all my life. Like 9 and 9. For my top 10, top 10, 9 and 9. This one's for my top 10.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more. And you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Dr. Alan Goldhamer, and my take on his top 10 rules for success. Enjoy. Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1, commit fully.
The first thing I think is that people need to remember that health results from healthful living.
Yeah.
So if you want to get the rewards, you have to pay the price. And the price is healthful living, which involves diet, sleep, and exercise. So you have to make a commitment to control what you put in your mouth. And from our viewpoint, that means a whole plant food diet that's free of salt, oil, and sugar. I think the biggest problem are the chemicals added to food, salt, oil, and sugar, that artificially stimulate dopamine production in the brain, induce pleasure, and lead people to overeating, and then they get fat, sick, and miserable, and it's, you know, you got this whole cascading twilight zone to try to get out of. So if you control what you put in your mouth, and you remember, if you want to have enough energy to take on all these challenges, you have to get enough sleep. So good quality sleep means you're sleeping in a cool, dark, and quiet place. You set up a regular pattern, you make that a priority. And the other thing is exercise. People need to engage in some kind of regular exercise to dissipate the consequences of stress that they can't get rid of. So whether it's walking, hiking, biking, swimming, I don't know that any specific exercise is necessarily that much better than something else, but something that preferably that you enjoy doing, or at least that you don't hate doing, and that you can do on a regular basis. And all of these things are better if you can find people to interact with they don't have to be eating just the way you do. They just have to be willing to tolerate that you are. They don't have to be engaging in every single thing or believing every single thing. They just have to be willing to allow you to be successful and not constantly be trying to undermine your success. They're what I call energy vampires.
Right.
Those are people with
sniping, criticizing,
constantly trying to undermine
you or making fun of you.
You don't need that.
No.
You know, you kick those people to the curb and try to find people that are willing to tolerate your success. And I think if people do that and they do it consistently and persistently, they're going to be able to achieve the goals they want.
Rule number 2, escape the dietary trap.
What we need is to figure out a way to escape the dietary pleasure trap and actually give the body a chance to heal itself.
How do you do that?
What we do is education. So we teach people about the fact that health results from healthful living. And from our viewpoint, healthful living involves diet, sleep, and exercise. So we teach people how to make sure they prioritize their sleep, that they get appropriate activity, and that they control what they put in their mouth. And from our viewpoint, that diet is a whole plant food diet that's SOS free. And as you know, SOS is the international symbol of danger. It also stands for chemicals that we add to food that fool the satiety mechanisms in our brain, lead to systematic overeating, and lead to the metabolic syndrome that's epidemic today. And that metabolic syndrome is responsible for contributing to the diabetes, the high blood pressure, the autoimmune diseases, and some forms of cancer. So when people are educated about that, they can make a decision to make sure they're sleeping, exercising, eating properly. Some people, that's not enough. They need a little extra help, and that's where we have an inpatient facility where people can come in and live in a controlled setting so that they can go through fasting if necessary safely, they can make the dietary changes, and they can get educated about what it's going to take to actually get well. And once people experience getting well, sometimes they're motivated to comply.
What does O stand for in SOS?
Oil. So it's salt, oil, and sugar. Those are the chemicals that we put in the food that make us fat, sick, and miserable.
So those are the words: salt, oil, and sugar.
Yeah, so these are not actually food, but there are fractionated food byproducts that we put into the food to stimulate the dopamine in our brain.
Rule number 3, put in extra effort.
So I think sometimes results are proportional to effort. You want to put the extra effort in, you'll get the extra results. If you don't need the extra results because you're perfectly happy where you're at, well, great, do it that way. You know, John McDougall says we're the punishment. We're the place you have to go if you're unfortunate enough not to get the great results with a more flexible program. Well, that's probably true. So we see the people that can't get away with a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Doesn't mean it's for everybody. We don't pretend it is. The question is, don't tell me I can't lose weight. Don't tell me I can't normalize my blood pressure when I can't get off drugs. Just say, I'm not willing to make the kind of sacrifices necessary to be successful. And I'll say that, fine, I understand, that's fine.
Rule number 4, step outside the norm.
If you decide to step outside the norm on diet, it's very disturbing to people. You know, many of them are well-intentioned, misguided people that are genuinely concerned for your well-being. They think if you don't adopt the diet that they adopted, you're going to be, you know, it'll compromise your health and traditions. You know, I had that experience myself. You know, when I adopted this at 16, my mother was very concerned. I had adopted this, you know, whole plant food diet. And my uncle, who was a physician, actually was invited over. I remember because it was my 16th birthday, and she wanted him to talk some sense into me. And he said, oh, you know, don't worry, Phil. These kids go through various diet fads and stuff. And as long as he eats plenty of gefilte fish, and, you know, he'll be fine. And I explained to my uncle, I said, no, Uncle, it's called being a vegan and, you know, no animal foods at all. He said, it's called being a Meshuggah. You'll stop it right this minute. Anyway, it's also, I decided at that point what career I wanted to pursue. I wanted to get into this alternative medicine. So I told the family I decided on my career choice. And he was really upset. He was screaming and yelling. I thought I was going to witness my first stroke. He said, nobody in this family would go to that kind of a doctor, let alone become that kind of a doctor. He says, better you should be a communist spy. And he's screaming and yelling. And finally, they get rid of him. He goes away. My dad, who's a really serious guy, takes me aside. He says, son, I don't know anything about this alternative medicine business, he says, but anything that makes him that angry and mad, it can't be bad. So you stick to your guns and good luck to you.
Also, if you want to have more self-confidence and self-belief, I've created a special free program called 254 because the science says that it takes up to 254 days of consecutive action to build a habit. So what I'm going to do is send you an unlisted video to your email every day for 254 days for free to help your confidence and self-belief shift forward. The link to join is in the description below.
You were up and dressed and ready to go before your parents were up. You know why? Because you knew something unexpected was going to happen. That's how we should live our lives. Waking up with the understanding to expect the unexpected.
One of the real reasons we don't do the things that frighten us is because we are afraid of being judged.
Rule number 5, try intermittent fasting.
Intermittent fasting can be a helpful tool for some people, and that means limiting the feeding window. So you don't eat before a certain time in the morning, maybe it's 10 a.m., and you don't eat after a certain time at night, let's say 6 p.m. That means every day you're getting 12, 14, even 16 hours of fasting without necessarily disrupting your health-promoting plant food diet. So you're still having your 3 healthy vegetable-based meals, but emphasizing high nutrition density, low caloric density foods, so lots of salad and vegetables and fresh whole fruit.
Squash, beans.
But during a narrowed feeding window, that 8 hours or that 10 hours. So for some people, that seems to help them avoid a lot of the particularly late night fatigue eating where they're going for high calorie foods that don't have a chance to get burned and instead just get stored. So that type of intermittent fasting, some people want to make it even faster. What they can do 1 day a week or maybe 2 days a week on days they can take it easy, they would limit their caloric intake to around 600 calories. Maybe they might just have salad and fruit. 2 pounds of salad, a pound of fruit is about 500 to 600 calories. And so that would facilitate additional weight loss without stopping bowels from functioning, without depleting them, without getting them into a dehydration state. And that type of modified feeding or intermittent fasting can be a useful and safe tool.
Rule number 6, be around supportive people.
How important do you think one's environment is to their recovery from food addiction or just from getting out of the pleasure trap?
I think it makes a big difference. If you are the only person in your environment that's trying to live healthfully, it's much more of a challenge than if you have even one person that's supportive of what you do. And particularly if it's your loved ones. You know, it's one thing for parents to have to struggle with kids, particularly teenagers and their typical attitudes. But if their mate, they don't have to be doing it. Be clear. Your mate doesn't have to be eating healthy for you to be successful, but they can't be frankly antagonistic. It's very difficult if they're frankly antagonistic. Think about it. If you were trying to quit drinking and your mate was saying, well, what's wrong with a little bit? A little bit's beer and wine's okay, and you're no fun anymore. That would be harder than if somebody, even if they were still drinking, did it away from you and showed you a little bit of respect and support. You know, if you're an alcoholic and there's open bottles of alcohol laying around the house, do you think your success is going to be better or worse than if, you know, it was sequestered away and out of your reach? So I think there's some common sense here. If people are trying to make changes in their life, it would be helpful if the people around them tried to help them make those changes, even if they weren't prepared to do it themselves.
Well, do you have any strategies, maybe in some of your patients, where the woman successfully was able to get a clean environment, even if the family wasn't on board?
Well, it's happened in many ways. I remember I had one woman whose husband was a smoker, and she, you know, he was respectful in the sense that he wouldn't smoke in the house and stuff, but, you know, she was worried about him because she loved him. And she explained to him one day that she supported his right to do what he wanted to do, but that if he was going to keep smoking, that she'd really appreciate it if he would dramatically increase his life insurance, because with her next husband, she'd like to have a really, you know, nice standard of living. And he said that every time he went to smoke, he pictured his wife with another man, and finally it bothered him so much he just quit. Being in an environment, whether it's TrueNorth or any environment that is, you know, free of the temptations and is supportive of, you know, making changes, I think is very helpful to people. Being around other people that don't think you're a whack job just because you're trying to get healthy can be very supportive.
Rule number 7, be persistent.
It's not a necessary component for most people to achieve a high degree of health. What's necessary is to have the persistence and diligence to apply these principles, to understand what it is they're trying to do, implement it long enough so they get some good results, and then it becomes a little bit easier because the positive feedback starts to outweigh all the prices that you're paying and giving up the short-term pleasure-seeking self-indulgent behavior.
Rule number 8, become desperate.
I actually started reading, and there were books like Herbert Shelton, who were talking about health from healthful living, Nathan Pritikin and others that were writing books that were very compelling. You know, they made a lot of sense.
But why? Why did you start reading that?
Well, it's because I was trying to beat Doug in basketball. I just was I was so desperate to be better. I was willing to do anything.
Is that really the reason why you started?
Absolutely. No, that was just totally. That was the total thing that got me sucked in, wanting to beat him. Anything to get an edge.
Rule number 9, enjoy the benefits.
Just because someone can't be a pro basketball player doesn't mean we don't teach them to play college basketball. What did you mean exactly?
What I meant was not everybody's going to be the very best, right? There has to be some people that are second best and third best and 100th best. So just because somebody can't be perfect and they can't be a skinny bitch and they can't be, you know, on the cover of the whatever magazine or something, doesn't mean that everybody can't get benefit from applying these principles to the best of their ability. You know, I'm 60 years old. I play basketball 4 times a week, and I'm playing with people much younger than I am and are much better than I am, but I get plenty of enjoyment and benefit. Even though I'm not the best, I'll never be the best. I was never the best from the process. So you don't have to be meeting somebody's idealized standard in order to get benefit from adopting these diet and lifestyle principles. And just because you can't be perfect doesn't mean you can't get benefit from doing it. And I think that I actually probably enjoy playing basketball more so than even some of these more talented people that I'm playing with, because, you know, I have, I think, a better perspective on the overall approach. And so I find it's enjoyable even if I'm not able to achieve each and every goal. And of course, it's a good thing I feel that way because I've been playing against Dr. Lyle now for 45 years. And we played this morning, as a matter of fact, and he beat me to a pulp again. So, you know, the fact is I can still enjoy it even if I'm, you know, struggling trying to better him.
And rule number 10, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is have fun.
Chef AJ often talks about your son Gar and how he eats this way, eats a lot of food, and how his favorite food is Brussels sprouts. How did you raise such an exceptional child?
Well, he's just a weird kid. When he was little, he was raised at our facility, our inpatient facility. He never saw TV. He never saw any other kind of food. So that's all he knew. And I decided to do a little experiment when he was a kid. I said, Gar, if you're a good boy, there's a special treat that I'll let you have, and they're called Brussels sprouts. But you really have to, it's exceptional when you're really good. And then one day, they were bringing a plate of food out for a patient. It had Brussels sprouts. I mean, he's like 4 years old. He said, oh, you must have been really good. My dad's giving to this day, his favorite food is Brussels sprouts. I don't know what I did to this poor, kid. But, he actually got kicked out of school. We tried to send him to, we did homeschooling, but then we tried to send him to, the Waldorf school or Montessori or one of those, And he goes to school, and apparently some kid tried to make fun of his food that he brought. And he said, well, if you weren't so ignorant, you'd eat like I do. And he says, besides that, you see that bologna sandwich on white bread that you have there? That's proof. Your mother doesn't love you. He said, you're going to die a slow and painful death. And described all the symptoms of stroke. And so the kids are going home crying. You don't love me. I'm going to die. And the principal's calling me, and I'm saying, well, they are going to die. What the hell are you teaching those kids? And then he was in another school, and then another school, and then we went back to homeschooling.
Now I've got a special bonus clip that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? When you watch a video and you just get motivated, the sign says you have a 35% chance of actually following through. That's not good enough, Believe Nation. We got to take action. But when you get motivated and then you create a specific plan of action for when and how you're going to do it, your number jumps from 35% to 91% chance of following through. And when you commit to somebody else, like posting down here in the comments below, that number jumps to 95%. I want to know your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week. Put it down in the comments below so you can follow through and I can celebrate you.
From my viewpoint, the big message is this. Health, this optimum state of well-being that I think most people desire, has a cause. And health is the result of healthful living. And healthful living means diet, sleep, and exercise. So you want to get enough rest so you can wake spontaneously feeling refreshed, engage in vigorous but appropriate exercise, and eat a plant-based, SOS-free diet. And I think if you do those things, you'll be so healthy and happy you won't have to worry about all the other little details.
If you want 10 more amazing rules from Dr. Gabor Mate, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
The stage 4 meant that the cancer was already in her bones by the time it was diagnosed. At that time, she had 2 young children, aged 1 and 3, and married to a well-to-do businessman. She herself